Welcome to the People Strategy Podcast. My name is Traci Austin, and I am your host. In this show, we dive into the latest trends and best practices in talent management and organizational development. Join me as I chat with industry experts, HR leaders, and business innovators to uncover strategies that can elevate your people and your business. And we always will refer back to a previous episode. And one of the episodes we want to highlight today is an old one, and it's called Putting Systems in Place to Show Up as Your Best Self. And one of the reasons we pulled this one out of the archives is in today's episode, when we talk with Craig, who I will introduce you to in a moment, we're talking about systems of a whole home and systems inside of a business that really need to be put in place for us to put our best foot forward. So how we show up as our best selves, along with how our business shows up as its best self, go hand in hand. So with that, we always have a gratitude. And last week you heard from Richard Walsh, and Richard chatted with us about some of the profitability pieces and how we start to understand the systems inside of our business and really moving forward to ensure we're not leaving dollars on the table and that we're really taking care of all of the pieces of our business. So you'll hear us refer to Richard today, as Richard definitely introduced us to Craig and is integral in his business. So with that, Craig, welcome to the People Strategy Podcast.
Thank you very much.
So, Craig, tell us a little bit about you, your journey, how you went from kind of this father-son construction organization to where you're at today.
So I build custom homes, and we're here in that part of the Texas Hill Country, a couple hours south of Austin, in a town called Kerrville. And we are third-generation home builders, and truly has been generational in learning the things that we're doing. And what has changed so much in the past few years is that we have gone from that mom and pop family, real small business, and decided that we're ready to systemize and build this business to be able to operate without us. In order to do that, we have to use the strengths of others, because I'm really good at some things and I'm really not good at a lot of things. So that's the journey in a nutshell, is bringing the right people into the right system and then using their strengths in the right spot, and then success is inevitable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And before we jump into this, I just want to kind of chat about these family businesses. We just cleaned out my grandparents' house, and my grandpa's 90 and we're moving him into a home. But within that, my dad and my grandpa had Austin Builders, and it was custom homes as well. So my grandpa built the houses and my grandma sold them. So this this kind of generational of where it goes, and they both went off and worked for general contractors and those things after a while. But taking something that was built generations and making it better by acknowledging we're not great at everything, which is something that didn't always happen.
That's right. So there's so many things that in the past I can see now have been absolute hurdles that we couldn't jump because we didn't have the skills to jump them.
Right.
And it was just us. So we did okay. We got by. We made a living. I've never been hungry in my life, but there's a difference when you switch into systemizing and bringing others on board with that.
And what was the impetus to systemization for you?
Well, if I may, there's a little backstory to tell about that.
Oh, we want to hear it. It's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. So for almost a decade, I was in education. I was a high school teacher and was actually going through a lot of education to become a principal, because that was the track that I felt God had me on. And before that, before I went to college, I was building homes with my dad and my brother and my mother, and we were doing this thing. And then I went to college and became a teacher and did that for about a decade. And then all of a sudden, I felt like God was calling me back to go into the home building business with my family. And I felt like I'm at the peak of my career in education, and I love it, and I love these kids. But I was obedient, and I said, okay, I'll go do that. And lo and behold, God always knows best. And 6 months later, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my mom has stage 4 cancer, and is critical. And so she and my dad are now doing that and trying to recover from that. And here I am, a carpenter of the past, and then an educator that has now been handed several million dollars worth of homes and kind of figure it out. We need you to figure this out. And so what I did is I started searching for help to figure it out because I didn't know what I didn't know. And that was dangerous.
Right.
So that was the springboard, if you will, of why I needed to create this, because I lost two of the biggest factors that had been there from the beginning, which were my mom and dad. They were now gone doing treatments. So I had to figure out what's next. So that was kind of the beginning of the systemization.
Awesome. So within that systemization, I believe that there's another story of how you shifted into doing custom homes, but doing custom homes that focused on clean building and what that specifically looked like.
Absolutely. Yes, there's definitely a story, and the story is still unfolding even today. So I moved back into this business in 2018. Fast forward, we built business for several years, and we're on a great track. And for the past couple of years, my wife has continued to show declining health. And we've searched to try to figure out what's going on. And we've even had some doctors mention MS and some other things that are getting scary. And well, we really started looking into what was going on, and we're very holistic. So we went and did some tox testing and found very high levels of mold in her body. And her physician said, we need to look at your environment and see where this is coming from. So we started looking at our home, and we had bought our home shortly after we got married. We didn't go this all. So we started looking around and finding mold. And it's funny because our house didn't smell like mold, that you didn't see it drawn on the walls. It wasn't just everywhere, but we did certainly have a big problem. To spare you the details, we ended up deciding that it was going to be better for time and money to tear that house down and to rebuild it. And to date, the new home is about 70% of the way. So we're still in that process. But what has happened in the last year since then has been a straight up vertical learning curve on why do we need to change building practices and how do we change them so that the people living inside of them are healthy? How can we build an environment that the people can thrive in? Because you spend over half your life in your house. So how do we create that environment that kids can thrive and parents can feel like they're protecting their family? So we've been doing a lot of research and learning and studying and actually at a very fast pace found the answers. And now the answers is building a high performance home that can be completely controlled, and we keep the inside in and the outside out. And then we let the house breathe when we give it permission. And all of these systems work together, much like you said earlier, our business works the same way. These systems have to be programmed to work together, not just on their own. Because it's not enough to just have all of the systems. They have to talk to each other.
Correct.
So there is definitely a lot of parallel in this and inside of business. But what it's done is it's put us on the front edge of what I believe is a revolution coming to the industry. Because we have gotten, my wife and I personally, 6 or 8 or even 10 calls a week from people in our town that have said, we've shown mold and we thought we had a good house and we got problem. What do we do?
Yeah.
So it has definitely opened up a huge amount of vision of, oh my gosh, something's got to change.
Right. And there's so many parallels here within people's strategies. Like I get calls every single week, Traci, we've got a people issue inside of our business. And I'm like, tell me more about that. Is it really a people issue, or is it the way that our business and our people strategies are structured, how we set our people up to truly be successful by creating that container? And the answer so often is no. Right. And so much as you're talking about the homes, so much we see this within our businesses because we don't have the designed accountability or the inspired accountability within it for folks to be successful. So I do want to transition a little bit into how you're really successfully setting up some of those people strategies to have all of the different areas talk to each other so your folks can be truly successful.
Fantastic. Well, we've certainly been working on that really, really hard. You mentioned Richard. He's my hero. He absolutely has walked me through some fires, and I can't say enough about him. He's amazing. But what we've done together is created systems that do speak the same language. And when I say that, they're broken into sections. And so pretty much every business has some sort of accounting, production, sales. So we've got those all built. And the thing is, just like the systems in the home, if the air conditioners are speaking to the ventilation system, then they're working against each other.
Right.
And we see that in our business with our production team and our estimation team. They both are very, very good. But if the handoff from estimation to production isn't spot on, we're not going to end up successful. So how do we create that? And creating those systems then to float people into, and not creating the system to fit a specific individual.
Right.
I think that's also very, very important.
Absolutely. Because otherwise, if we're creating it for a specific person, we're turning ourselves and our business into a pretzel. The question is, do they actually meet and live by what our core values are? Do they align with what our mission is? And so often, if that core value for that individual doesn't align with the business core values, we're not going to have success. And that core value alignment is one of those biggest pieces that we see folks skip over. And without that, we don't have the synergy inside of the business.
That's right. Absolutely agree. We've built something that is called our strategic vision.
Mm-hmm.
And this vision is something that was one of the first things Richard and I did together. But it is absolutely the groundwork for every decision that is made within our business. And it also shows every person that works within our business where they fit in a story, in a narrative. Because if you give someone purpose, they're going to work for you until the very last minute that they can. They love working for a purpose.
Absolutely.
And when they can read a story that they're a part of, that's powerful.
Absolutely. Because you can see yourself in it. And it's the same with goal setting, right? When we can take our goals and align the organizational goals to the team goals to the individual goals and tie those in, now all of a sudden we're seeing up and down how we fit into something that's bigger than us and has a huge impact in the community of which we are serving.
That's right.
So you've really developed, and you talked about this a little bit, where you're not creating roles for a person, but you have these, subject matter experts in areas, but then you're also doing a lot of the dot connection to ensure that that handoff is there. How have you gone about building that? And what are some of those successes within that?
The subject matter expert is critical. So in addition to our custom home building company, we have two other companies. We have an insulation company as well as a painting company. And all of these companies have a subject matter expert. I would say that our custom home building company has subject matter experts in areas as well. But it's so critical because that's the person that has the content knowledge that we need. But what I see a lot in the trades is that we have a lot of people that have the content knowledge. They don't know how to apply it.
Correct.
They need help. They need somewhere to plug that in that says, okay, here's where I plug in what I need. Mm-hmm. And really build them up, because the fact is they know how to do things I don't know how to do. But I'm having them come in and operate systems that I've built so that what they're doing is done the way that I set it up to be done. Subject matter experts in our custom home building company would be over some of our larger sections. So we have an SME for estimation and for production and for sales. Mm-hmm. And so I think that with a growing business and the larger a business gets, you have to have SMEs over broken out sections within the company, not just one. And if you just have one, that's either a very, very small business or you're not willing to let go of the reins.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, these subject matter experts really have a specific area that they're great at. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're great at leading people. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're great at the strategic area of the business. And I think a key here is connecting that together so that we're not just promoting subject matters to be the top level manager of people, because that can be a completely different task. And when we can start to create the connections based on the strengths of folks, it makes everyone better. And then we can align that back to the purpose.
That's right. Totally agreed.
And from those separate businesses you had, those were actually individual business owners at one point in time that you brought on, and actually with your skill set in the structures and systems in your organization made it better for them as being a part of your organization.
That's right. So finding those subject matter experts is often not that hard. You find somebody that does great work, but their business is fail.
Right.
And I say that in the nicest way possible, because just like you said, they're very, very good at what they do, but they don't know how to do the estimates. They don't know how to bill. They don't know how to invoice. They don't know how to make sure that they can make payroll.
Right.
So taking them out of that highly stressful situation, plugging them into an organized situation really lets them emphasize and show off their skills, because you're using them in the area that they're very, very good at. And you're removing some of the areas and or replacing them with more organized thought that they're not good at. And we've done that multiple times. And those people have a better quality of life. They make better money. But the fact is, taking their and pulling them out of that, I have to do everything and I need to be good at everything, but I know I'm not, role, and putting them into the role they're really good at just gives a big breath of fresh air. But it also allows us to build our businesses bigger and to have a larger impact, which is our goal. Profit's very important, but impact is always over income. So when we can make a bigger footprint, we're able to make a larger impact. And we do that by working together in our skill sets.
Absolutely. We're going to turn up the strengths on our team, and we're going to design our teams in order to execute key strategies. And when we need to play with the teams based on the strategy changing, we will, because that's elevating, versus playing whack-a-mole on the weaknesses, which is what we so often see when we first go in and start talking with organizations, is this kind of game of whack-a-mole. And it's like, okay, there is a better way to do this that's very much strength-based. And so you talked a lot about some of the systems that you're creating. Could you provide an example of a replicable system that supports the success of your team members as they come in?
Absolutely. So we've got a very clear and cut system for how we integrate a project into production. And that is one of the major parts of our business, is taking a home from concept and starting to build it on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
As you can imagine, and as you've had family in this business, there is so many parts and pieces to the puzzle of building a whole that it is very overwhelming. But what we've done is we've created a system to where I can take an entry-level project manager, put them into some training on the job under a seasoned project manager for as little as 3 to 4 months. And then they're able to have the knowledge to run the system and to actually build the entire home as the project manager, because that system supports them so well. That's our means robust system. But we've got them for estimation as well, and for accounting, and for sales. We even have systems for our office manager and how she opens and closes, and what the temperature's out, and what kind of smells do we want in our office. And all of those little details are what make a world-class experience, and that's what we offer. So you can't leave those things to chance.
Correct. Yeah, you absolutely cannot. And I think that there's this systemization of items doesn't mean that you're not open to innovation. It does not mean that you're not open to creativity or feedback. And I think so often it's like, oh, if we systemize, then we lose all of this, creativity with it. And the answer is no. What it does is it creates a base to ensure that we are getting the results that we're building in, but we also have that room with those feedback loops that are 100% built in. And it sounds like your program for your new project managers almost kind of like a mentoring program. And, one of our favorite programs is our new hire buddy program, which is really a line level staff person working with a brand new staff person. It elevates that line level employee, but it's also ensuring we don't have the turnover in the first 90 days. And what better way to learn something than to train someone else on it?
That's right. That's right. And incentivizing the way they're learning with real data and compensation.
Yes,
So
100%.
performance-based pay and some of these other things we can get into, but I want to touch on what you just said, that I never want to be the smartest guy in the room, because the fact is I'm not.
Right.
And bringing in people that are good in different areas is my strength, finding those people and plugging them in where their strengths are, but then opening my ears and listening, because they know how to do things so well within their string that I need to build the system around some of that knowledge, because I don't have all of that knowledge. So I take this back to when I was a teacher. Some of the most fun learning moments I had as a teacher, and I said my learning moments, were the times that I was willing to close my mouth and let and watch high school students work a problem. And I thought I knew how to solve the problem, and I did. I had a solution. But 9 times out of 10, theirs was so much better, because I have been doing this for a long time. So my brain is already tracked in a certain way on how things are done. But you bring this freshness in, and if you're willing to take some of those ideas, mix them with the experience that you already have, you can come up with some really special things.
There's something beautiful about new eyes before the blinders get put on.
That's right. Absolutely. So we try to utilize that. And that's another reason that we don't just dump new hires into the job right away, because we want them to be able to learn it for sure. We want them to know that, but we also want them to have the time to get comfortable and then start saying, hey, I noticed we do it this way. That works. What do you think about this?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a no, like, no, it won't work because of this, and you just didn't know that yet.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like, let me chew on that, because you might be onto something. And then talk about making them feel valued. A new employee coming up with a better way to do something, and we actually implement it.
It's huge. And this is speaking directly into your culture. And what is the culture that you are creating based on the behaviors that you're allowing or not allowing, and the collaboration that happens specifically on day one?
So our culture is definitely very pointed at service. So we do build homes, but we're a service provider. So offering a world-class building experience is the one pillar of 3 of our businesses that direct what our culture is. But offering that client a Ritz-Carlton experience as opposed to a Motel 8 experience is absolutely our focus. And in order to do that, you have to shine in the right places, because both of those have beds and elbows and showers, but they're also both very different. That drives our culture, because we need to hire servants that are willing to be very, very good in construction and very good in customer service, because we have a very long relationship with our clients. Even just during the construction phase, that can be 8 to 16 months.
Right.
And so we have a very, very long expectation of making them feel that they are having a world-class experience. It's a little bit different than a 24, 48-hour stay at a hotel. So that has to be one of the pillars that we stand on. The other part of that service is making sure that we are offering the peace to our clients who are making the largest investment of their life in most cases, that they are being provided something that will maintain its value, and that it will be healthy for them to live in, that their kids and their grandkids and their great-grandkids can thrive in this space. So those are 2 of the 3 pieces of our culture. The third part is that we believe that God owns our business, and that we are operating this business for him in his ways. So
Right.
the 3 of those things all point back to service to the client all the way through, service to their health, and then service to the kingdom of God. So service is our culture.
And that service then takes care of your people within the business.
Absolutely.
And that key, as we're talking about people strategy, that ties everything back together, and we can pull it back to those 3 pillars. We can pull that back to why we do what we do and how we do it. And for our listeners, I really want you to think about, how is your business set up? And do you know what those pillars are in your business or your core values? And so often what we find is when we aren't grounded within what that is or know what that is, that's where we start getting folks going all over the place and having to have some of these tough conversations or a lack of clarity on what we're doing and how we're doing it. So thank you for naming that in a way that our listeners could hear it, because sometimes we need an example of what's possible for us to step into it.
Yeah, and it doesn't ever have to be a replica of another business.
And it shouldn't be.
So
It shouldn't
genuinely,
be.
your business,
Yeah.
build it for what you feel called to do. If you're building widgets, be the best widget builder you can and serve your clients super well. But also serve the people within your company. Because I mean this in all the right ways. I want to serve my client, but I'm probably going to serve them one time building custom homes.
Yep.
How many points of contact do I have with my employees, and for how long? In my
Thousands.
subcontractors, how do I serve them so that I can build dozens of homes with them, not just one?
Right.
So that service goes deeper into the levels, and that has infiltrated in how we've set up our compensation plans, how we set up our performance-based bonuses, because we genuinely want their level of service to reflect in their income. That's only fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then it ties all the way back through. So any last thoughts that you have for our listeners today?
It's so easy in business, and we all listen to the podcast, and we all listen that everybody who's an expert, right? And we always tend to feel less than, but it's your company.
Right.
It's your people. You know what they need. You know what your heart is leading you to do as far as setting up what your culture needs to be. Now just have the time, give yourself the time and space to build it out. That
Absolutely.
would be my final thoughts, because that has revolutionized not only the way I operate on a daily basis, but our entire organization.
And I love what you just mentioned something is like, you've got these experts out there, and I will name, I don't see myself as an expert, just as you don't see yourself as the smartest person in the room, because I am not. But there's partnerships that have a huge impact that allow folks to rise together. And I think that, like, when you look at a whole home or a whole business or a whole community, without those partnerships, you can't do it on your own. Like, you do it in community and in partnership with others. And others may have been doing something longer than you or have different experiences that can help to move you forward. And I do think that there's a mindset that I'd love for listeners to kind of noodle on over the next week is, how am I approaching the partners in my business, whether it's employees, whether it's contractors, whether it is financial institutions, whatever that is, because true partnership elevates everyone.
Absolutely. Partnership and advisors.
Yes.
The Bible says, for a lack of advisors, a nation fails. Don't be scared to get a coach. Get Richard Walsh, Sharpen the Spear Coaching. I can tell you firsthand, he's changed my life. But don't be afraid to be the naive one and go and be vulnerable and sit in front of a person that's 10 or 15 or 20 years ahead of you and say, are you willing to help me get where you're at?
Right.
And more times than not, they are.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Craig, and sharing your story to create that example of what is possible for others. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for listening today. I'd love to connect with you. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn at Traci, Traci Austin, and at our website at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. If you'd love to learn more about our process, please reach out to us. And again, thank you so much for listening and sharing your feedback with us through a review. Have a fantastic day.